The town was small and quiet, with streets that held more dust than shine. In one of the little houses at the edge of town lived a girl named Lily. She was young, with tired hands and eyes that carried more weight than her years. Her father had passed away long ago, and her mother was too weak to work. It was Lily who held the family together, working long shifts at a diner where she served food with a smile, even when her heart was heavy. Every day was the same, but Lily never complained. She was used to sacrifice. One rainy afternoon, Lily left the diner after a long day. Her shoes were worn and thin, and the water seeped through them as she walked. The town streets were busy, with wagons, bicycles, and cars passing in a rush. She pulled her coat tighter, thinking of her mother waiting at home. She wanted to hurry, but then she saw something that made her stop. An old man stood by the crosswalk. He held a cane in one hand and looked unsure as he watched the traffic move fast. His clothes were plain and looked a little worn, and the rain made him appear even more fragile. Cars splashed water near him, but no one slowed down. People passed him without offering help. Some looked, but most turned away. Lily watched for a moment, and then her heart decided before her feet did. She walked to his side and spoke gently. She asked if he needed help. The old man looked at her, surprised, and nodded. His voice was soft when he thanked her. Lily took his arm and guided him carefully across the wet street. The cars honked, the water splashed, but she kept walking with steady steps. Her hand was firm and her eyes forward, making sure the old man was safe. When they reached the other side, the old man smiled. It was not just a small smile, but one that held warmth and gratitude. He thanked her again, his voice shaking. Lily only nodded and told him to take care. She did not wait for more words. She gave a small smile of her own and went on her way. She had no idea who he was, and she did not ask. To her, he was only a man who needed help. That was enough for her. The old man stood for a while watching her walk away. The rain fell on his shoulders, but he did not mind. His eyes followed her until she turned the corner and was gone from sight. His name was Benjamin, though few people knew his full story. Many thought of him only as a simple farmer. His clothes and quiet ways made him seem ordinary, but he was far from it. Benjamin owned the largest farmland in town, acres of rich soil and barns filled with harvest. He was the top farmer, respected and sometimes envied, but he never spoke much about his success. He preferred to stay quiet and watch people, learning who they really were when they thought no one important was looking. And in that one rainy moment, he had seen something rare. He had seen a girl who gave kindness with no thought of gain. Lily did not know she had helped the town's most powerful farmer. She did not know her simple act would change the course of her life. She only knew that she had done what felt right. But Benjamin knew more. He knew this girl was different, and he felt a stir in his heart that he had not felt in many years. He would remember her name, and he would not let her fade from his thoughts. The next morning, Lily woke early as she always did. Her mother was still resting, coughing softly in her sleep. Lily made a simple breakfast of bread and tea before hurrying off to the diner. The streets were still damp from last night's rain, and the air smelled of wet earth. Lily tied her apron as she walked, preparing herself for another long day. She had no idea that someone was already watching her life with quiet interest. Benjamin had not forgotten the girl who helped him. The memory of her steady hands and her simple kindness stayed in his thoughts. He knew he could not approach her directly, for she would see him as just an old man. Instead, he spoke to his grandson Ethan, a young man who worked beside him on the farm. Ethan was strong and dependable, with a calm face that did not reveal much, but his grandfather trusted him more than anyone. Benjamin told Ethan about the girl named Lily. He spoke of her kindness, her quiet strength, and the way she had not looked at him with pity, but with respect. Benjamin wanted to know more about her, to understand who she truly was. Ethan listened without saying much. When Benjamin asked him to visit the diner and see her for himself, Ethan agreed. Later that afternoon, Ethan walked into the diner. His boots carried the dust of the farm, and his clothes were plain but neat. Lily was busy clearing tables when she noticed him. She offered a polite smile and handed him a menu. Ethan ordered a simple meal and sat near the window, watching her as she moved from table to table. He noticed how she spoke kindly to the old couple at the corner table, how she bent down to pick up a fork a child had dropped, how she worked quickly without complaint. He could see the weight on her shoulders, but he also saw her strength. When Lily brought him his food, Ethan thanked her. His voice was low and steady, and Lily gave him a small nod before returning to her work. She did not think much of him, only that he was another customer. But Ethan stayed longer than most, sipping his coffee slowly and watching without making it obvious. When he finally left, he left a few extra bills on the table as a tip. Lily was surprised when she saw it, for tips that generous were rare. She wondered for a moment who he was, but she shook off the thought and went back to work. That evening, Ethan returned to the farm. Benjamin was waiting, eager to hear his thoughts. Ethan told him what he had seen. He spoke of how Lily carried herself, how she worked hard without showing bitterness, how her kindness seemed natural and unforced. Benjamin smiled as he listened, his heart warming. He told Ethan to keep visiting, not to rush, but to let things unfold naturally. He believed there was something special in this girl, something that fate itself had placed before them. Ethan agreed, though he did not fully understand why his grandfather cared so much. Still, something about Lily had stayed with him as well. Her quiet smile, her tired eyes that still held a spark of hope, the way she treated every person with respect. He felt a pull, though he could not explain it. Lily, meanwhile, returned home late that night. She found her mother awake, waiting for her. They ate a small supper together, and her mother asked if anything interesting had happened at work. Lily thought for a moment, then shook her head with a smile. She did not speak of the stranger who had tipped her more than usual. To her, it was just another day. She did not know that her life had already begun to change. The days passed, and Ethan began visiting the diner more often. At first, he told himself it was only to learn more about the girl his grandfather admired. But with each visit, he found himself drawn to Lily for reasons he could not explain. She had a way of moving through the crowded diner with quiet strength, never raising her voice, never showing anger, yet never letting herself be stepped on. There was a balance in her that he found rare. Lily noticed him too. He did not act like other customers. He never made rude remarks or demanded more than she could give. He sat patiently, sometimes watching the world outside the window, sometimes reading the small-town newspaper. When he did speak, his words were calm and respectful. She found it unusual, but also comforting. She began to recognize his steady presence, though she did not know his name. One afternoon, the diner was unusually busy. Lily rushed from table to table, carrying plates and refilling cups. Ethan sat quietly at his usual spot while she brought his order. Her hand slipped from exhaustion, and a glass nearly tipped. Ethan reached out quickly and caught it before it shattered on the floor. Their eyes met for a moment, and Lily gave a quick smile of thanks before moving on. Ethan watched her walk away, feeling a warmth he had not felt before. Later that evening, as the rush slowed, Ethan stayed longer than usual. He asked Lily simple questions, like how long she had worked there and if the job was hard. Lily hesitated at first, unsure why he cared, but something in his voice made her answer. She spoke of her mother's illness, of the long hours she worked, and of how she tried to keep her home together. She did not complain, but spoke as if these burdens were simply a part of life. Ethan listened without judgment, and his respect for her grew even deeper. When Ethan left that night, he gave her another kind smile, before walking out into the dark. Lily stood by the counter, thinking of his steady eyes. She was used to people either ignoring her or pitying her. Ethan did neither. He listened as if her words mattered. Meanwhile, back at the farm, Benjamin listened to Ethan's report with interest. Ethan did not speak much of his own feelings, but Benjamin could hear them in his voice. He knew his grandson well, and he could tell that Lily had already touched his heart. Benjamin smiled to himself, pleased that fate was guiding them as he hoped. In the days that followed, Ethan found small ways to help Lily without making it too clear. Once, he noticed her struggling to carry heavy boxes into the storage room. He offered his strength, lifting them with ease. Another time, he fixed the loose hinge on the diner door while waiting for his food. Lily began to see him not just as a customer, but as someone reliable, someone who seemed to care in quiet ways. Still, she believed he was only a farmhand. His plain clothes and calloused hands told her nothing of who he really was. To her, he was simply Ethan, though she did not yet know his name fully. What mattered was that he treated her with respect, something she had not often known from men in the town. One evening, after closing, Lily walked home through the cool air. The streets were nearly empty, and the stars shone above. She walked. She thought of the man who had become a small but steady part of her days. She wondered why his presence felt different from others, why she felt lighter when he was near. She shook her head, reminding herself that dreams were dangerous for someone like her. She had no time for them. Her mother needed her, and work filled every moment. But deep inside, she could not deny the strange pull she felt, like an unseen string tying her closer to the quiet man with kind eyes. As autumn came, the leaves turned red and gold across the small town. Lily worked harder than ever, but her mother's health began to fail more quickly. The little medicine they could afford was no longer enough. Nights were filled with coughing, and Lily often sat awake by her mother's side, holding her hand. Her own body grew tired, yet she never let her pain show when she walked into the diner each morning. Ethan noticed the change in her face. Her eyes looked heavier and her steps slower, though she tried to hide it behind her usual quiet smile. He asked her once if she was all right, and she simply said she was fine. But Ethan could see the truth. He thought of offering money, yet he knew she was proud and might refuse. Instead, he began to help in small ways. One evening, when Lily left work late, Ethan followed at a distance. He saw her carry a heavy bag of groceries home. She stumbled once, and before she could fall, Ethan stepped forward and caught the bag. She was surprised to see him there, but she did not push him away. He carried the groceries all the way to her small house at the edge of town. When they arrived, Lily thanked him softly, and for the first time she invited him inside. The house was modest and worn, but it was filled with warmth. Her mother lay in bed, pale and weak, yet she smiled at the sight of her daughter's friend. Ethan greeted her politely, speaking with gentle respect. Lily's mother asked if he was the kind man Lily had mentioned from the diner. Lily blushed and said little, but Ethan only smiled. He stayed for a short while, helping with a few small tasks before leaving quietly. From that night on, Ethan began to visit more often. Sometimes he brought fresh vegetables from the farm. Other times he repaired broken things in the house, like the loose chair or the leaky roof. He never made it seem like charity, only as though it was natural to lend a hand. Lily's mother grew fond of him, and Lily herself began to feel a growing bond she could not explain. It was as if a thread tied her heart to his, pulling her closer each day. Still, Lily worried about the future. The bills were growing, and the doctor warned her mother needed better treatment soon. Lily thought of leaving town to find work in the city, though the idea broke her heart. She could not imagine leaving her mother, yet she feared they would not survive otherwise. Ethan sensed her struggle, but kept his silence. He knew revealing his true life as the grandson of Benjamin might frighten her, or make her think his kindness came from pity. He wanted her to see him as a man, not as an heir. So he did what he could, helping in ways that did not reveal too much. At night, he spoke with his grandfather about Lily's troubles. Benjamin listened with care, his mind turning with plans. Meanwhile, Lily tried to stay strong. One night, as she sat by her mother's side, she thought of Ethan. She thought of his steady hands, fixing the roof, of his quiet smile when he carried groceries, of the way he listened to her without judgment. She felt comfort she had not known in years, yet she told herself it could not last. He was just a farmhand, and she was only a poor girl with too many burdens. Still, in her heart, she felt a string of fate pulling tighter, binding her to a man she barely knew, yet trusted more than anyone else. As weeks passed, the bond between Lily and Ethan grew stronger, though neither spoke of it openly. Townspeople began to notice Ethan, as regular visits to the diner, and sometimes to Lily's home. Whispers spread quickly in the small town, and not all of them were kind. Some said Lily was seeking a man to lift her out of poverty. Others claimed she was using her looks to gain favors. Lily heard the cruel words when she walked through the market, and though she tried to ignore them, they stung deeply. One afternoon, as Lily served a group of young women at the diner, she overheard them laughing. One of them said loud enough for her to hear that the poor girl had finally trapped a farm boy. Another added that soon she would beg for his money. The laughter cut through her heart, but she kept her head down and finished her work without a word. When Ethan came in later that day, Lily's smile was faint and her eyes clouded. He noticed at once but did not press her in front of others. When the evening came and the diner was empty, Ethan asked her gently what was wrong. Lily shook her head and told him it was nothing, but her voice trembled. Finally, she confessed that people were saying she was only interested in him for money, even though she knew he was just a simple farmhand. Ethan felt a heavy ache in his chest. He wanted to tell her the truth, that he was not just a worker, but the grandson of the most successful farmer in town. Yet the fear held him back. What if she looked at him differently after that? What if she believed the whispers to be true? Lily, feeling ashamed, began to distance herself. She stopped meeting Ethan's eyes and kept her words short. Ethan could see the wall she was building between them, and it hurt him more than he expected. Benjamin noticed too. When Ethan returned to the farm one evening, troubled and silent, his grandfather pressed him for the truth. Ethan explained what had happened, how the town was speaking against Lily, and how she was pulling away. Benjamin listened carefully. Then he said that the time had come to reveal the truth. He reminded Ethan that Lily had shown her heart when she thought Benjamin was nothing more than a frail old man. She had not helped for gain, only out of kindness. Benjamin believed that the strength of her heart would not change when she learned who Ethan truly was. Ethan hesitated, still unsure, but deep down he knew his grandfather was right. In the days that followed, Lily tried to keep busy, avoiding Ethan when she could. Yet every time she saw him, her heart ached. She told herself it was for the best. She could not let gossip ruin his life, and she could not bear to be the reason he was mocked. She began to think more seriously about leaving town to work in the city, believing it would be the only way to protect them both. But Ethan could not let her slip away so easily. One evening, as the sun set over the fields, he made a decision. He would no longer hide who he was. He would show her the truth, no matter the risk. For he had come to realize that what tied him to Lily was not chance, but something far deeper, like a string that pulled their souls together. And he could not let that string break under the weight of rumors and lies. The next day, Benjamin decided he would take the first step. He walked slowly through town until he reached the small house where Lily lived. She was outside hanging laundry when she saw him. She hurried over, worried that the rain might be too much for an old man like him. Benjamin smiled and said he wanted to speak with her. She led him inside where her mother rested in bed. Benjamin greeted her mother kindly before asking Lily to sit with him. He told her his name, and slowly the truth came out. He explained that he was not just an old man struggling to cross the street, but the owner of the largest farm in the county. He spoke of his land, his barns, and his long years of work. Lily stared in silence, her hands trembling. She could not understand why such a man would visit her home. Benjamin then told her about Ethan, how he was not just a farmhand, but his grandson, the heir to the farm. Lily's face grew pale, and she shook her head, whispering that it could not be true. Benjamin looked into her eyes and reminded her of that rainy day. He told her that she had helped him when she thought he was nothing but a frail man with worn clothes. She had shown her true self, and that was why he trusted her. He said her heart was honest, and he believed that her bond with Ethan was not built on lies but on something far deeper. Lily's eyes filled with tears. She felt hurt, confused, and betrayed. Yet she also remembered every moment with Ethan, every quiet kindness that had never felt false. When Benjamin left, Lily sat alone for a long time. Her mother reached for her hand and told her that kindness like Ethan's could not be faked. Her mother reminded her that some truths may shake the heart, but they did not erase what was real. Lily wept, torn between anger and love. She did not know if she could face Ethan again. Meanwhile, Ethan stood on the farm restless. He knew his grandfather had spoken to Lily, and he feared the worst. He wanted to run to her to explain, but he held back, knowing she needed time. Every hour felt heavy as he waited. He replayed every word he had spoken to her, wondering if she would believe he had only meant honesty and care. That evening, as the sun dipped behind the hills, Lily walked to the edge of the fields. She hoped the open air would clear her thoughts, but instead, it only reminded her of Ethan. She remembered him carrying her groceries, fixing her roof, sitting in the diner with quiet patience. Those things had been real. She could not deny it. Yet the secret he had hidden pressed on her heart. Ethan saw her from a distance. He hesitated, then walked toward her. When she turned and saw him, her eyes were full of questions. He stopped a few steps away, his voice steady, though his heart raced. He told her he had wanted to tell her the truth from the start, but fear held him back. He feared she would see him as a name, not as a man. He promised her that every moment they shared had been real, every smile and every word honest. Lily listened, tears falling. She asked him why he had not trusted her enough to tell her sooner. Ethan lowered his head and admitted his mistake. He said he would not ask her to forgive him easily, but only to remember the bond they had felt, the string that had pulled them together. He said he believed that string was stronger than secrets. Lily stood silent, torn between pain and love. She could not answer him that night. She turned and walked away, leaving Ethan standing in the fading light, holding on to hope that the string between them had not broken. The days after their meeting were heavy for Lily. She moved through her work at the diner quietly, her thoughts always on Ethan. She wanted to be angry, yet each memory of him carried warmth she could not deny. She remembered how he had listened to her, how he had cared for her mother, how he had helped without asking anything in return. The truth about who he was weighed on her, but the truth of his heart mattered more. Ethan could not rest either. He worked the fields, but his mind was far from the soil. He thought of Lily's face as she walked away, the pain in her eyes. He told himself he would give her time, but his heart ached with every passing hour. Finally, he could wait no longer. He went to his grandfather and said he would face her one last time with nothing hidden. Benjamin placed a hand on his shoulder and told him to speak with honesty and let the girl decide with her heart. One evening, as the sky turned orange with sunset, Ethan walked to Lily's house. She was outside watering the small garden her mother loved. When she saw him, her heart tightened. She wanted to turn away, but something in his face made her stay. Ethan stood before her, his hands rough and his voice steady. He told her again that he was sorry for hiding the truth. He said he had feared losing the simple trust she had given him, a trust no one else had offered him so freely. He said he was ready to accept her anger, but he could not let her believe that his love was tied to wealth. Lily listened in silence, her eyes wet with tears. She asked him if all his kindness had been part of his secret. Ethan shook his head and said every moment had been real. He reminded her of the roof he fixed, the meals he shared, the nights he walked her home. Those were not acts of pity, but of love. He told her he would give up the farm if it meant keeping her trust. His words carried no pride, only truth. Her mother called from the doorway, asking Lily to come closer. She told her daughter that life was not about the judgment of others, but about the people who stayed when times were hardest. She said Ethan had proven himself by his actions long before his name was revealed. Lily felt her mother's words sink deep into her heart. She turned back to Ethan and saw him not as the heir of a farm, not as the grandson of a rich man, but as the quiet soul who had walked beside her when she carried her burdens alone. She stepped forward, her voice low but clear. She told him she did not care about land or money. What she cared about was the man who had shown her respect, the man who had tied his heart to hers without needing to say the words. Ethan's eyes filled with relief. He reached for her hand, and this time she did not pull away. Their fingers touched, and it felt like the string that had pulled them together finally tightened into a bond that could not be broken. Benjamin watched from a distance, smiling with quiet pride. He knew the girl's heart was true, and he knew his grandson had found the one fate had chosen for him. The town soon learned of the truth, but the whispers faded when they saw the strength between Lily and Ethan. Together, they walked through the market without fear, their bond clear in every step. Lily's mother received the care she needed, and slowly her health began to return. The little house at the edge of town grew brighter with laughter and love. Lily had once been only a poor girl helping an old man cross the street. Now she was the heart of a family that carried both strength and kindness. The string of fate had led her to Ethan, and together they began a life where love was greater than wealth, and kindness was the root that held it all.